Whenever I set up justgoodstuff.ie, I would have been absolutely lost at sea without Shopify. Starting your own business or product can be completely overwhelming. When I discovered Shopify, it made my life so much easier. With Shopify, it's not just websites like justgoodstuff.ie. They're also the platform behind millions and millions of businesses around the world, from household names to other brands just getting started. Shopify has so many AI tools. They can even enhance your product photography. You can easily create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling. It's got world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping. It can process returns. It's super, super simple. So basically, turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your €1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.ie. Go to shopify.ie. That's shopify.ie. It's time to see what you can accomplish with Shopify by your side.
Mark Megan's Roast Mortem. Thanks to the Brehon Hotel and Spa. In line with tradition, in tune with today. See thebrehon.com.
Welcome back to the Roast Mortem. How's it going, guys? How the hell are you? How are your hearts? And of course, how are your heads? Guys, Mark Megan's Roast Mortem is proudly brought to you by the Brehon Hotel and Spa in Killarney. And this legend amongst hotels has had a serious glow up, much like Mystery Mick. It's what they're calling the new Brehon. Much like Mystery Mick. They've kept those traditional family values we love, but added a massive contemporary edge. Nothing like Mystery Mick. Zero family values, nothing contemporary. We're talking about the new Heritage Bedroom Collection, which is stunning for a couple's break or a solo reset. And honestly, you don't even need to leave the hotel, which is what I love, by the way. That is my dream scenario. Yeah. You've got the Anu Spa with the Lemus products, a golf simulator, that's me golfing, called Par 72, and a proper new residence bar called Bive. That's B-A-D-B though, so make sure you Bive. It's right on the edge of the National Park on Muckross Road, so it is the ultimate staycation spot. Everything you need under the one roof. Check them out, guys. The Brehon Hotel and Spa. In line with tradition, in tune with today. Right. I feel like we should both take a deep breath.
This is a minefield.
I'm quite nervous.
Yeah, so am I.
I can tell by your voice. I am quite nervous.
Yeah, I feel that.
So welcome to the show. Today we're talking about the Manosphere documentary. And let that be very clear. This is a conversation around the Manosphere documentary, not a solution to or a answer to the much wider problem. First things first, I think it's important I think any man that's using his voice around this subject matter is probably beneficial on a wider level. However, I think it would be remiss, and I think everything that I will say in this podcast is absolutely redundant if I do not initially look at myself and my own contribution to the, I suppose, is it endemic? What's the word? Like
systemic, endemic.
Just like misogyny on a whole, and I suppose toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Because I think, so first things first, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Tickets to Killarney Castle go live on sale tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
Always plug.
Have to do the plug. It's the homecoming tour. It's the homecoming show. It's the last ever performance of the House of Loons tour. It's the greatest thing I've ever written, and it's selling out the Olympia was genuinely a dream come true. It's why I keep mentioning it. But we're taking it on tour around Ireland, most of which is sold out. Galway and Kerry, there's some tickets left. But yeah, the homecoming show is on in Dublin Friday, May the 1st. Tickets on sale tomorrow. So, I'd love to see you there. That's it. There's no secrets. There's no tricks up my sleeve. There will be no more shows. You will never see the House of Loons again. Nevertheless, so since the Louis Theroux Manosphere documentary came out, lots of people have been in touch saying that we should do a podcast about it, and they'd love to hear our perspectives, and they share their own opinions and thoughts. One person said to me, "Oh, here we go, another two guys on a podcast talking about this," which I'm surprised by, because that is fairly reductive, I think, as an opinion, in terms of, you may not be interested in me or the content that I create, but I think like policing sort of podcasts and or insulting men for wanting to become part of the conversation, I feel like is not useful overall, because we sort of, if we want anything to be constructive here with this wider issue and to focus on younger people, because this whole podcast is not for me to try and convince someone my own age, is the reality, right? Like,
Sure, yeah, that's fair.
I'm not trying to preach to not the unconverted, but the ones who are so blasphemous they never want to. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The atheists, so to speak. You're not preaching to them. You want to sort of preach to the younger ages. So before I trail off, I'm just saying that I do think every voice is valid in this. So anyway, before we get into the show, I think it is important for us to acknowledge, our context.
Totally.
Which is, what are you a recovering misogynist? Are you a former misogynist? I genuinely don't know what the right term is, and I'm afraid to speak in absolutes, and and I'm afraid to speak at anything as if, with definition, as if I have the knowledge or the answers. And I also think we have to allow nuance with conversations like this. Like, we have to be able to get things wrong, and we have to be able to say certain things that are wrong or misinformed without it being, oh, you don't have a voice because you've said the wrong thing. So I just want to say in advance that I will probably get some things wrong. And I also don't want to explicitly go on record and say I'm a former misogynist. But I do want to paint a picture, which is that, I grew up, up until probably the age of 28 or so. Absolutely, in retrospect, was a misogynist. But I know it seems like mental to say that, but if you actually look at it, I think it's maybe it's unconscious misogyny, right? And lots of it was, but it's true, in the way that, not on the extreme level, but just the day-to-day thing. And I mean, for me, most of what I want to talk about today is the day-to-day and the context that I know. But let's look at the environment, right?
Sure.
Grew up in South Dublin in a private school. From day one in private school, boys were told to be a certain way.
Totally.
In terms of sport. Yeah. Sport was obligatory in my school. You had to play rugby, no matter what. I mean, the running joke was that a guy showed up to first day of rugby training in a Mickey Mouse denim jacket, and everyone abused him. And as I was crying on the way to my locker, no, you tell him, Mark, they'll rule this day. No, but genuinely, rugby was obligatory.
Yeah.
And I grew up with, anti-female jokes.
The culture.
There was an absolute culture of, sort of chauvinism, and boys should be a certain way. That's the truth of it, is that immediately it was, if you are perceived as soft or different or whatever else, you are X. But then there's also the chauvinism. So that was the culture, right? And that was not just boys. We weren't inventing this ourselves. That was the environment that we were in. And then outside school, at home, and adults, and the wider cultural context of music, jokes in comedy. It's really important, I think, if we're going to try and lead with any compassion, which is the only answer, I think, with certainly new kids, is rather than just labelling them, rather than acting like these young boys and young men are making a choice to become misogynists, I think we have to look at what their overall diet is, insofar as culture is concerned, media, but as well, the rooms that they're in, the classrooms, bedrooms and whatever. So I would have grown up, as I said, with that in school, but then all the music that I was listening to was rap music, okay? And rap music is, and has, it's aged terribly in ways, in that, and it's a huge problem. Like, some people have spoken out about it, in terms of homophobia and misogyny in rap music is just atrocious.
Yes.
And always has been. And of course, at 14, I didn't know that. And I know there was Eminem as the great sort of leading commercial example, but I was listening to lots of different rap and underground rap and stuff that was just brutally misogynist.
Yes.
And Biggie Smalls, all of those stuff. Now, obviously, lots of it was character driven, talking about Frank White and whatnot, but he was talking about robbing, murdering, assaulting women all the time. That's what I was listening to in my headphones going into school. So I think whether it makes people uncomfortable or not, we have to accept that we were growing up being fed this diet that women were or are there for our enjoyment, right? And then you throw in privilege, and then you throw in sport, and then you throw in hormones and adolescence and puberty and wanting to fit in, and all of a sudden you are just creating dickheads. And I've no problem admitting to that I was a dickhead. And however, I do think that there's conditioning, and then you grow up and you reach an age where you have to go. You're right, I know better.
Yeah.
I know better now. So
take stock of how.
Yeah, you take a personal inventory and you sort of go, do you know what? It's totally unacceptable to, even just simple things. It's the referring to women as birds. Do you know, that sort of stuff that you realise, and one has to realise as you grow up. And again, I want to make it clear here, I am absolutely not some sort of poster boy for neo-feminism or anything, far fucking from it, okay? And I am as flawed as the rest of them. And only about 6 months ago, by the way, I was driving into Dunleary on a Saturday morning, and I went into the the roundabout there on the top of where you come off the M50 and you go down, there's the Lidl in Sallynoggin. And I pulled in, and a woman in front of me slammed on her brakes at the entrance to the roundabout, which locked me on the main thing, and a car nearly slammed into the back of me. So I was beeping her. She just wouldn't move for about 30 seconds. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Eventually she was waiting because she wanted to park in a place. She didn't get the car park that she wanted, the space that she wanted, even though half the place was empty. And I was like, you could have caused an accident. She was like, I wanted the car park space on the left. I was like, you can't just hold up the whole thing. And then she goes, I don't need to be mansplained. And I was like, this isn't mansplaining. This has got nothing to do with gender. This is somebody being reckless and nearly cause an accident. Anyway, what I'm saying is, I'm not going to sit here, and I think lots of men that are chiming in on this whole thing are acting, again, although it's on a converse way, they're acting like there's a certain way that a man should be. And that's part of it. There is not and there's nothing wrong with masculinity.
No,
do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with men, and I'm not, just because I'm some sort of soft dick sitting in a studio who's interested in writing poems and music and comedy and all this. I don't think every man should be like me. I'm not going to come out and go, you know the way some guys are coming out and going, I've never met a man like this, and all my friends would never speak about women like that. Well, then you're very fortunate.
You haven't lived in
but unfortunately, and I've lived in Ireland, in the UK. I spent most of my adult life in the UK, read my book, in various different contexts. And the one thing that rings true, and unfortunately the universal language, is misogyny. Yeah. Myself and Darren were talking about this. When we were on a cruise, we landed in Turkey. And we wanted to go and see Ephesus or Ephesus.
Right.
And this guy just came up to us, my friend, special deal, grand. We get into the car, we're having a laugh with him. I was trying to break him down. And then he made a joke. And what's the one thing that he made a joke? Hey, woman driver, pointing.
Oh, God.
And that shows you just how far it is as currency in terms of bang.
Yeah, this is the common
that's
place
it.
That we can have a laugh.
Universal language, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am evangelically reformed and Marcus, listen to my podcast. I get it wrong all the time, and I think that is what it is. So because somebody said to me, don't do this podcast because you're going to get backlash, because there will be lots of people sitting here going, oh, but blah blah, and that's that is what it is.
Yeah, but I think where we see people have that sort of backlash is when people do it for the wrong reasons, when they're being apologists as virtue signalling.
And they're using ChatGPT. We see you, by the way. We see you. How are people not calling this out still? Some of the most famous people I know are using ChatGPT to use these things.
But this is as equally problematic, because when it's not real and it's not honest, you can then start to dismantle it and say, these guys aren't doing that, because they don't actually care about the cause or about the issue. They're just, doing it for engagement on social media.
Yeah.
So you need to have honest conversation.
So I would have grown up with, and because we'll get into the documentary now, but I would have grown up with like, people who were educated saying to me, you don't speak like that, or like that rap music that you listen to is, atrocious for them, the way that they speak about women and those things. But when I was 15, I run the opposite direction to that.
Totally.
And I think, like, having a teacher say to me that, oh, this rapper that you like from the Bronx is a hoodlum and a criminal and there's nothing to be admired in him, that only makes me go, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You're out of touch.
Absolutely.
So, and there, like, I guess therein lies the flaw, or therein lies the challenge. How do we reach these kids? Which brings us to the documentary, okay? The context, as we all know on the internet, is social media is absolutely rife with grifters. And they are everywhere, by the way. They're not just in the misogynistic circles. Like, Ireland, this will happen. There will be a documentary on some of the biggest wellness people that you know, in terms of the absolute spoofology and the courses that they're selling. That they don't write these courses themselves. They're paying somebody else for them, or they're getting Tony Robbins and they're putting Tony Robbins into ChatGPT, and then they're building careers off that.
Throwing a few Jesus in.
Do you know what I mean?
Don't give up, yeah.
And there is an absolute rake of people out there in Ireland. If you've a brass enough neck, you can make millions in this country. And so the whole like grifter culture is not new, and it existed prior to the internet, and it will exist afterwards. But in Louis Theroux's documentary, he's tackling these grifters, scammers who are Forex traders offering futures to vulnerable people. And the 15-year-old boys are vulnerable people, okay? Unfortunately, the people who will suffer the most are not the 15-year-old boys, they're the women around them. Yeah. And I would have liked to have seen the women around them feature more in the documentaries.
Totally agree.
I think that, how long was it? 90 minutes. 90 minutes of showcasing these buffoons, okay, with hideous character traits. Absolutely, there's no question. But that's obvious, right? Like that. We're wasting time if we're holding up idiots and assholes and saying, "Aren't they idiots and assholes?" Yes, so what? Like, and also, idiots and assholes are allowed to exist. That's the reality. There is no one type of person. You might find certain character traits distasteful, but that's irrelevant. We don't. There's not one type of personality, and I feel like this is such a separate conversation. But I do feel like that one of the issues with the left is that they're sort of creating like what they believe should be like the new archetype of like man and woman, which is just too uniform. And anyway, it's a different conversation. But I believe that the subject of this documentary, the focus was too heavy on their characters, which of course are repulsive. Mm-hmm. But like, say that to a 15-year-old.
Yeah. The reality is, if you're a 15-year-old watching that, you still saw people in Lamborghinis, in villas in Marbella, living the life that they probably want to pursue.
You saw HS Tiki Taki, walking around, taking the piss out of Louis, getting stopped for photos, kids going crazy every time they saw him asking for selfies.
That's right.
That's the cancelled bell. You saw people stopping in the street. I don't know. I think it was very convincing to adults that they're repulsive. That's fine. But then again, we have to look at the purpose. Is the purpose to reach kids and to get the message across? And I also, let's just be completely honest, because somebody messaged me to say Louis Theroux's a genius. How can you criticise him? I've been watching Louis Theroux since I was 9 years of age. He was in the BBC when I was there. We did hot desking. I got to sit beside him on occasion, okay? I think the man has had an absolute phenomenal career. Nobody is immune to criticism, by the way. That's just a fucking absurdly limiting take. And as well, if you want the complete honest truth, I don't think that... I thought more. I thought there would be more in this documentary. Anybody with a social media account or access to the internet is probably aware of these grifters, and I just don't think that it did enough, is my personal opinion. You might disagree with me, but that's my opinion. I'm obviously chronically online, but I thought that this was like, at best, it was a surface level introduction to the types of characters that are doing the rounds. That's it. I think it would have been... I don't think this was like a hit piece that some of the media outlets are making it out to be. I don't think it was was a successful dismantling of the Manosphere. I don't believe that HS Tiki Talkie is going to be dethroned, or Ed Matthews, or any of these odious weasels, okay? I think, if anything, it's just going to further the divide. Do you think Eminem, when he was barred from performing at the Grammys, that people stopped listening to him? Do you think whenever they were protesting outside of shows, calling him for Interscope to drop him as an act, that they were saying, you know what I mean? None of that isn't effective. You're just creating villains. I think that it would have been more effective if this was just 90 minutes of interviewing women, be them sisters, girlfriends, teachers, like the teachers that are coming out of the woodworks and messaging me saying they're in the rooms with these kids. Like, we should be talking to them more and platforming that. Like, you know, let's look at the people who have suffered at the hands of that world and give the kids a lesson in empathy. I think that would be a lot harder for them to sort of ignore. Do you know what I mean? Why didn't they bring in 15-year-old boys and go, how much money you stole your mother's debit card and you racked up £1,800 in debt? Let's talk us through your journey. Yeah. Imagine if that story was told through the lens of relatable teenage boys who had been scammed, who had, you know, maybe assaulted a girlfriend and ended up in juvie as a result. Or the girlfriend, by the way, or the parents of the girlfriend. But again, and it might sound like I'm not giving women as much of a voice in what my idea of a perfect documentary should be, but it's more, I'm trying to only think about what would have reached, if we want to go to the root or the source of all of this, which is young boys whenever they're their most impressionable, we have to look at how we communicate with them. We can get lost in the middle of that spectrum and we can fucking fight each other. And lots of people want us to fight each other, by the way. We've seen the success of the culture wars. Anything to do with gender, we've seen it with politics, all the rest. People want us to get lost in the middle of that spectrum. I think we need to go to the root, and the way to treat the root is with compassion and education. But education in a compassionate way, not in a lecture way, in a you are wrong. I mean, there's an example in Irish culture a few years ago when the two Johnnies got ridiculed for, there was some big scandal around car sticker signs, right? Do you remember that? There was on the radio. Yeah. The two Johnnies are probably the most influential Irish voices in the country, or male voices in the country. They are like a juggernaut of success. And, you know, I remember the way that they were being spoken about by people in the media, and their fans were being spoken about, was absolutely, like, whatever about your personal taste is regarding to people's content. It was so counterintuitive, because they were effectively saying the two Johnnies are misogynists, everybody who listens to them are idiots, blah, blah. Cool. So if you're 15 and you're hearing that, what are you going to say? And you see two lads who have championed the way you live and the things you aspire, who have provided a voice and all of the rest, you know what I mean, who objectively, by the way, I would say are absolutely the opposite of that. And the subject matter and the way that they've handled some really serious issues, it's evident that they're nothing but professionals, right? So, like, everybody was so quick to jump and blame, and then I'm going, if I'm 17 and I'm out listening to podcast or the news and I'm being told that I'm a pig or I'm a monster for even listening to this, I'm not going to go, do you know what, they're right, I'm going to stop listening to this. I'm going to, you know, you're actually probably going to go, that's pushed me further over away again. You'll just become a contrarian. So I think, again, it comes back to, like, that compassion has to be the way that we lead. It's probably quite a meandering episode, and I think that that's as a result of myself and Michael both being hyper conscious of what we say, not wanting to be, you never want to seem to be like criticising something for the sake of it. And I think any conversation in this general arena, if it's educational to people, is constructive. Do you know what I mean? And I think certainly we've seen a lot of sort of backpatting nonsense replies from guys going, just watch the Louis Theroux thing. These absolute losers. Real men do this. And it's like, oh, you're missing the fucking point entirely, I think. This whole idea, again, of real men and what real man should be and stuff is just, it's all part of it. I think documentaries like that as well, though, also allow you to feel really guilty for about 60 seconds and say, yeah, you know, that's important viewing, that's powerful, and then to change nothing about your behaviour. And I think you've touched on something really important there, because for me, I suppose I can equate this to my drinking, right?
Mm.
For so long, I never did anything about my drinking because there were many people who were much worse than me.
Sure.
And all I had to do was go out in London and see people who I believed to be worse off than me. And that made me go, well, I'm grand.
Yeah.
Because I can still show up to work most days. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, no, I'm fine because I'm not on the streets. Oh, I don't drink every single day of the week, so I can't be an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I think with this, it's sort of similar, wherein people are seeing the likes of HS Tiki Taki, who is running some form of, you know, OnlyFans agency and just, you know, anyway, all of the things that he's up to. And they're saying, well, that's not me. I'm not that bad. Like, I'm not at all like that. Now, I think, and this might come as a shock, but I think probably 8% of misogyny is actually unaware in terms of sexism, maybe more so than misogyny, right? Because it's misogynistic is the intrinsic hatred of women.
Yeah.
But I suppose like everyday sexism is, some men are not even aware that what they're saying is sexist. And I think some men aren't aware that the way in which they talk about women is derogatory. And some men certainly aren't aware that the way that they view women as a sort of secondary, you know, citizen is an issue. So they watch that documentary and they're like, yeah, that's shocking. What absolute dirtbags.
Yeah.
But they don't realise the way that they carry on is contributing to the thing. And by the way, I say that as somebody who absolutely has contributed to the thing. I'm not saying that as somebody who's gone, I've never put a foot wrong. I'm a fucking idiot. And I've definitely said and done things over the years that are just like absolutely at total odds with who I am today. And unless you actually scrape through your own history and look at the way that you've conducted yourself and behaved yourself, you're never going to grow. And I'd be concerned that the extreme nature of the individuals featured in this documentary are so extreme that your run-of-the-mill man who goes, do you know what? Like when I say run-of-the-mill, I'm talking about in the context of sexism. You know, he's like, well, I provide for my family. I don't fucking, you know, do that with OnlyFans girls. I'm grand.
I think there's certainly an iceberg. So they're like, the average Joe might not consider themselves to be part of the problem, but like, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, the amount of times on my algorithm, a video that isn't great will come up and I'll see like mates have either liked it or are following meme pages.
Yeah.
And that is part of the problem because there's a correlation between everyday sexism or misogyny and like the depths and the bowels of the worst of the worst.
And it does. You see, I didn't realise this years ago. When I first started working at the BBC in 2018, that was quite the reckoning for me in terms of realising that lots of the sense of humour that I'd inherited from like my childhood, do you know what I mean, growing up and had cultivated from my school and that culture of lads, like, is just not a goer.
No. And
I always thought that I was open-minded and I was like, you know, I had a relatively open view of the world.
And you can be.
But then you realise, oh, but you make some outrageous comments that are just totally inappropriate. And whenever I worked in the BBC, like the greatest thing about working at the BBC is it is quite literally every but I know people slag it and saying box ticking and whatnot, but it's like, yeah, but it's good. Box ticking, by the way, it's good to have box ticking. It's good for there to be equal representation. Sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No more than like, you know, political correctness. Oh, it's weird the way you can't say jokes about rape. No, that's a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, these things are positive.
Yeah.
But so
you're defending those things, you're kind of...
Yeah. I reserve my right to be racist towards... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I, like, being in the BBC, all of a sudden, I was just like this South Dublin privileged clown. And I'm sorry, in some ways. In other ways, I was still... Obviously, I got the job for a reason and, you know, capable and all the rest. But, like, my outlook on the world, in ways that I wasn't even aware of, was very, very close-minded, narrow-minded, and I had no understanding of lots of different cultures, and again, females, and like working with women it was just an eye-opener in terms of jokes and whatnot. But I think there are so many people out there. Sorry, what was the point that I was making? I completely lost the run of myself there at that point. No, it's my fault.
When you went into the BBC, just how... it was your con.
So sorry, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, like, I wasn't aware that the jokes and the culture that I had learned from school and my upbringing was wrong. And I think you don't realise until you stand out, but the only way to stand out is either to literally stand out of your environment, but not everybody does or wants to or can do that. So we have to inform, and I think, I just think, I think it's really tough. And also, I always I'm going to get grief for this. I think sport has so much to answer to. And by the way, you look at, there are certain Instagram accounts that were doing the rounds in the last year in Ireland, which are putting out some really dangerous beliefs.
Really harmful stuff.
And some of the followers of that account were Ireland's most revered sportsmen.
Crazy.
So, if you're 14 and you're at home and you're scrolling through and you see that blank has liked this thing, you're going, well, that's okay to engage with.
Yeah.
So, like, this is so much more nuanced than obviously one documentary. And that's why, like, I love Louis Theroux. Like, Louis Theroux has done genius things. I think in this chapter of his career, he's running the risk of not moving with the times. And I think he's late to the game. I think he's been late to the game with some stuff. But I also think, unfortunately, just giving people enough rope to hang themselves with isn't enough. We know that these people are clowns.
Yes. And they know how to game the system as well. So they take someone like Louis Theroux and they nearly contort what he can even bring.
And also, we have to remember that there are people, I've mentioned this recently on the podcast, but there are people who will support you when you get cancelled purely because they hate the idea of people getting cancelled. Like that is as a subculture of Irish society, and worldwide society does exist. There will be people out there who, no matter, if I came onto the podcast today and said something absolutely disgracefully inappropriate, there will be people out there who go, do you know what, like he shouldn't be getting, like, they would support me more almost for being for being abhorrent. So, okay, let's just do some top line thoughts on this. The feedback, by the way, that I received on Instagram was primarily from people who have children themselves, both male and female, and were just terrified about the future. Or they were from people who dismissed the guys in the documentary as idiots and whatever. And that's fair enough. And I think it's quite easy to dismiss people because of their personalities, but that doesn't change the weight that they have with other more vulnerable people. We saw this with Donald Trump, by the way. People laughed at him because he was so repulsive and repugnant and distasteful. And then what happened, like, and what keeps happening? And sorry, on the documentary, like, we can vilify the fans of these people. And we can think about them at the end stage of their behaviour, which is sort of aggressive, violent behaviour towards women. Or we can look at, say, the two subjects that they had at one point, where they're these two lads who had moved to Miami.
Oh, it was horrible. That
was bad TV. And I think that was bad by the production crew of the documentary. And I think it was really unfair.
Yeah.
You had the guy whose brother died by suicide. And this individual clearly comes from no income.
He's broken.
He's lost his brother. There's no grief. He's lost, full stop. Right? Full stop, this kid is lost. And then he's paying money to try and find purpose and meaning. Like, what's the number one thing that these guys are looking for? Wealth, money. What's the one thing that anybody in the history of the universe has wanted? Wealth, money. What is every person who's fallen for a get rich quick scheme?
Yeah.
Wealth and money. I would argue that for some of these kids and people who are susceptible to this influence, the misogyny is a byproduct. That just comes as an accessory to the idea of money.
You're looking for any port in a storm.
That's it, man.
100%. And like, they prey on these people because they know those men are lost. And they're also living in a world now where they're told, your position in this world has changed and it's worse than it's ever been. And it's just objectively not the truth. And
talking to those two lads in the street and asking them, why are you mimicking the pose? Like, come on. Yeah, it's sad to watch, but then it's a sad situation. He was homeless. Like, this guy he doesn't have anything.
No.
Okay? He doesn't have anybody in his life softly guiding him into a better way. Imagine if they had just taken those two guys and put them in a room with 50 other guys exactly like them who had been burned by the influencers and who had said, but now I'm in community college and I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And there's a way out and I've got a girlfriend. And by the way, women are fucking great and women are helping me,
Yeah.
I just feel like that there's a way of doing this that is not like... again, as I say, if it's all a spectrum, we can just sit in the middle of this and get lost and throw mud at each other. And I'm sure there'll be mud thrown at me for some of the things that I'm getting wrong in this, because I'm probably getting loads wrong, because I'm not an intellect, by the way. No, but you know what I mean? I'm not an academic. I never went to university.
Yeah.
These are just my experiences.
That's an online course.
Yeah. I never went to university. However, if you DM me the word ghost cock, DM me the word show us your boot. No, this is it's a female led. No, it's not. Oh my God.
We had to bring something.
Oh fuck. But you know what I mean? It's like, it's so much deeper than this. I think we should cast aside these imbeciles. We should be doing courses in schools as to why HS Tiki Talkie thing isn't legit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think what you need to do is, as well, show them how it's not legit. So
I pitched a documentary. By the way, and just to let you know, I've been pitching documentaries to every production company in Ireland for the last 5 years about this. Not one of them will go near me. I wanted to go undercover because I know I know people in the property game who are all doing the same thing. It's all grifting, scamming, multi-fucking level marketing schemes. It's all the same. Buy my course. If you're so successful doing anything that you're doing, whether it's property, whether it's banking, whether it's finance, whether it's fitness, whatever, why the hell are you not if you're so successful off the business venture yourself, why are you renting out a hotel room in Sandyford Industrial Estate to teach 15-year-olds how they can do the same thing for the good of your health? No, because you're charging them 150 quid.
But also, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm working in this industry and it's going really well. Let's bring in more competition.
That's it. Let's raise, do you know what I mean?
This isn't hard enough, right?
That's now like me doing a series of podcast tutorials. Probably make a few bob out of that, actually.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So sorry, where was I though?
It makes no sense.
These grifters, that's it.
All snake oil salesmen.
They are all complete and utter snake oil salesmen, and we should be just revealing them for that. Sorry, I thought I had a point, but I've completely lost it.
Sorry.
No, you're grand. It's my fault. No, do you know what? It was the women's fault. No. It was the doctor. But it's like, what was the point I was going to make?
For educational purposes, you need.
Sorry, that was it. I've been trying. That was it. I've been going to production companies for years. I swear to God, my agent can back this up. I've had meetings with them, and I'm like, let me go undercover. Let me go to these seminars where they send out these fucking PDFs in Birmingham, in Dublin. They're all over the world, by the way. And these coaching is the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard. The coaching industry across the board, and it needs to be addressed. And it's fine if it's fucking sit-ups, okay? It's fine if it's something that's not important. When I mean it's not important, I'm not ridiculing health and saying that that's not important. What I'm saying is, if it's explicitly targeting vulnerable members of society, and that could be a 15-year-old boy in a classroom, or it could be a 43-year-old woman who is looking to find meaning and purpose. And that's all that any of us want, is meaning and purpose. And these fuckers, excuse my language, but these people doing courses online, and they're across every industry, from mental health to health and fitness to spirituality and to drinking, by the way. They're doing these sober coaches bollocksology. Yeah. It is absolute nonsense, and they are taking your money. They just want your money. That's all it is. If they were so successful at their thing, they would just be doing the thing. And if we can just show these kids, it doesn't solve the sexism, and Rome wasn't built in a day, but certainly to stop platforming clowns like this, if we just show them, look, by the way, here's 100,000 people who have lost money with them. They don't make money.
Yeah.
Just take the power away that way. Making their lifestyle on their boat with their champagne and their Marbella and their outdoor gym and their OnlyFans girls, a harem of girls with big teens. That's unfortunately, don't laugh, that is unfortunately going to appeal to a 15-year-old boy.
Of course it is.
Do you know what I mean?
So I think what I would be interested to get your take on now is, what is the solution today? In terms of actually, what can we bring to education? What sort of content will help people see the...
I think the solution is that we have courses in school. Irony of all irony. I think that there should be education. And sorry, I'm all revved up in my chest now, so I need to breathe. I think that there should be... And by the way, I'm not the person to do this. This is just couch, armchair slop. But I guess more information and education in schools about how fraudulent the banking schemes are. Like almost set aside their personality for a second.
All the red pill hustle grind set shit.
All of that.
Dismantled.
Yeah. I think we should get women who have suffered at the hands of people like him.
Yeah.
Or, or suffered at the hands of people who liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I think educate in a compassionate way that sort of brings the kids into the world of you're on the right side of it. And we're all seeing it for what it is rather than what you like is wrong, and I'm going to tell you what you like is wrong.
I have 2 questions for you. Do you think we should be looking at including fictional works like Adolescence or I Swear that talk
100%.
about these topics, or even empathy
all day.
into curriculums?
Absolutely all day.
Because I do think those 2 specific examples for me had huge impacts on... They maybe confirmed feelings I had, but they were really good personifications of them.
Yeah. I think that there is lots of material out there. Adolescence is obviously groundbreaking. That would be so beneficial. But I think and I'll finish on this. I think the number one thing that's needed for any growth to occur is nuance. And that has to start somewhere. We have to stop vilifying everybody for having a marginally different perspective than us. I'm sorry, maybe I'm doing that. Look, there we go. Catch-22. I'm guilty of my own thing. I'm vilifying other men for speaking out about this in the way that I'm in a different way to me. So I am, again, contributing to the problem myself. But I guess I think nuance should be allowed. I think that there is no one man, there is no archetype of a male that boys should grow up to be. I think the more that boys are encouraged to be whatever it is they want to be, and on the spectrum of gender, but of personality type is what I mean. Like, let them encourage and nurture all of that. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But I think even to admit that in itself is important. I've one more thing I'd like to ask you about. What do you think you do in sport? And the reason I ask is I think that's where machoism and a lot of toxicity is particularly prevalent. But as someone who still plays sport, it's a deeply positive aspect of my life. So I'd be interested to see what you think there.
Well, you see, I don't want to come like and I know I probably come across like I'm anti-sport. I'm absolutely not. I'm like, the benefit of exercise has done more for my mental health than anything else, right? Yeah. But sport, I know people who are alive just because of sports. Do you know? A lot of people.
Yeah.
And the value and the role that sport plays in individuals' lives, but also community, and it keeps communities together. And I think in an era whenever the community, we've spoken about it a lot on other podcasts like that, the community on the whole is dying, and a phenomenon that is dying out, which I think is really terrifying for society. I think sport is a fundamental role, like sport and the arts are 2 just like fundamental roles in keeping communities together. And if we reframed the problem and the pervasive sexism that does exist in sport, there's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
I remember, like, when I was 13 years of age, going to Lansdowne Rugby Club after an autumn international rugby match, right? Standing up, there's like a balcony out there that all the old fellas would stand up and have their pints afterwards. This was like run of the mill. Most kids who grew up in that area would have done this at a time where they go to a rugby match and then you go up afterwards. I still smell I can still smell the smoke and the Hamlet cigars from walking through, old fellas in the pub. And I remember standing out there, and you might remember that back in the day, they used to play the female international rugby after the men's international rugby. We were all up in the balcony and the changing rooms were below, and the women's rugby teams, Ireland, Scotland, walked out. And there was a brief pause of silence, and then what can only be described as a cacophony of laughter, followed by like catcalls and all the rest, from men in their 50s and 60s. I'm 12 years of age seeing this, and I'm being taught this is what humour is. Yeah. That's like, you didn't nick it up in the stones in the street. You didn't nick it off the stones in the street. I grew up and like, that's what crack is. A bunch of grown men in their 50s and 60s, who, by the way, not that it's relevant, but like, it's in, it's in a members rugby club. These guys are like what they probably self-professed titans of industry.
Not an international cap between them, and they're watching these like high-level athletes
No,
come out.
Exactly. But sorry, but my point is that they probably have very high opinions of themselves in commerce and in business. And then this is the way that they behave at the weekend. So I'm like, that's the environment we are all victims of our environment, and it's not everybody gets the opportunity to become an alcoholic and then go, do you know what, actually I'm a bit of a dick, I should probably change my ways.
Fair play.
No, but I do think that
but I think it's a really important point, because I do think sport as such a potentially positive thing, and if you look at how women's sport has come on in the last 20 years or so, like, it's phenomenally successful.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So in terms of inclusivity and community, I think it's one of the greatest environments to encapsulate it.
Yeah.
But there is still there is a nastiness within men's sports. I feel like that needs to be addressed.
Well, I think that there's a nastiness within groups of men.
That's fair.
And I've said that to you.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for me to sit here and pontificate about sport. If you put together a group of men for a book club, and you set up a WhatsApp group, I guarantee you by week 3 there'll be a meme of tits gone into it.
Yeah.
Genuinely,
Yeah.
And this is the awkward thing. I called out a friend of ours about 2 years ago, when he was ringing me up about something and he kept using the term bird. And I was like, you have to stop that. I was like, you just can't. I was like, I can't listen to this, man. It's just like, you need to stop saying bird, because it's just... Anyway, we don't really talk anymore, because he's like, you are some sort of born again spoofer. And I was like, fair enough. Like, there is an element to that, but there's also an element of like, you can't.
No.
But there are so many times, and there's lots of people, like, again, it's very easy to sit here when it's just me and you shaking each other. No, I don't know what that point was.
Not doing that.
But it's very easy for us to sit here and sort of be like, aren't we great fellas now? Because we're the guys now. We're not like whatever. It's like, well, Mark, are you going to say the same in a group full of 9 lads when somebody makes a comment about a waitress?
Yeah.
I've been in those situations and I get awkward and I go, you can't. Do I do enough? Do you walk away? Do you fucking stand up and do you go over and apologise? Do you apologise to the waitress? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. We do occasionally do comedy on the podcast, don't we?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think to bring it back to what you can personally do, because that is and I said it to you, I was at my own school's senior cup final yesterday, and I did find myself regressing back to a teenage,
but you see,
in a herd.
Masculine crack can be unbelievably fulfilling and enjoyable without it devolving into misogyny. And by the way, I will say this, just in case I come across like some sort of leotard wearing NYU School of Ballet Reform South Dublin jock who thinks he's part of the highbrow artistic Illuminati. That's an unusual sentence, but I enjoyed saying it.
It meandered a bit.
Yeah. I want you to know, like, the closest people in my life, friendship wise, are friends that I made in my school.
Yeah.
So I'm not some sort of complete anti, woke South Dublin, fuck private schools. My best friends are all from South Dublin, or they're all, not all from South Dublin, but they're all from this. Some of them are from the school that I went to.
Yeah.
So like there are and by the way, and none of them are misogynists. So like there are relationships and men in all of these environments that are like beacons of light and logic and normality and stuff. So this is not. I just really don't want to come across like some sort of wet, like, he's giving up the booze and he's just like better than everybody in every way. I am not. And if you listen to the podcast, there are so many times that I get it wrong and say things that are definitely wrong. Yeah. And there's probably lots of women listening out there and going, I saw him in Crystal Nightclub in 2013 and he was an absolute dickhead. I mean, I did used to wear 3-piece suits in nightclubs. That is the truth. That is all right. Something that Darren occasionally thinks of and just cringes. But you live and you learn.
That's it.
Nevertheless. If you are heading down to the Breton Hotel, you don't even need to leave the building, because they've got everything under the one roof now. Isn't that just magic, by the way? So you can just go, drop the bags and embrace the surroundings for the entire weekend. You've got the Anu Spa, using Lima's products, if you need to be pampered. I've always wondered where the phrase pampered come from. Well, baby's bottom?
I'd say that was after.
Oh, that Pampers came... Yeah. So where would pampered come from? Egyptians?
You're putting me on the spot here a bit, but
there you go. Psychic thing. If you were the co-host, you'd be bouncing off me. Nevertheless, you've got...
He was pamperous.
Nevertheless, you've got Elima's products, of course, if you want to be pampered. And for the golfers, they've got a simulator lounge called Par 72, which is elite, my friends. My personal pick, though, would have to be the Residence Bar Bive. B-A-D-B, that is, my friends. Or you can go for a bit of afternoon tea on the mezzanine. It's all, honestly, I was down there with Michael. We had the loveliest night. We're going back down again for the Kerry show on April the 16th. It's the perfect mix of classic Killarney, you know, but with a seriously sharp modern feel. So check out the new look Brehon for your next trip away. And I will see you next week, my friends. Take care.
Mark Megan's Roast Mortem. Thanks to the Brehon Hotel and Spa. In line with tradition, in tune with today. See thebrehon.com.